All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, Black Friday. All those retail deals galore. Don't pay retail. Buy today. It is November 29th of 2019. Happy belated Thanksgiving to all our Americans and, of course, all you Canadians. We're thankful for you, not the least of which is Sarah Corey and her team up there today, who's going to kick us off here today as we follow up. But if you are following me online today, on the whiteboard behind me, I wrote a couple of thoughts up there so that I could pay attention to those today. And they are, number one, have your information package ready before you're making sales calls or if you're going to go into a house. And number two, script out the value of your info. Right? That's the key. I'm seeing this with a lot of my members here, especially at the mastermind level where I have some real top producers. And I think one of the things they're all forgetting to do is, get that information package ready. I mean, if you don't know why you're valuable when you get on the phone, if you don't know why you're valuable when you go into somebody's house, well, then you're going to have an issue, right? I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. So the key is to get a package of information for buyers, for sellers, and if you're recruiting agents, have it ready to go. A nice black folder is what I have. Inside there is the market update for buyers and sellers. I have an infographic that shows the steps that we bring a buyer through, a seller through. Then in addition to that, we have the full-blown magazine copy so that we can show the professionalism of our brand to people. So that's how we are ready with our information. You want to be able to have that info ready. In fact, I could argue that when you're making your telemarketing calls, to actually have these packages laid out in front of you, because what you're going to do is in that discussion, offer value to somebody. So many of you are trying to just get scripted for the sake of getting scripted, and you're not really thinking, well, why am I different? See, scripting with all this NLP and repeating things back to them and trying to be crafty, you're not helping people. What you're trying to do is learn technique and tactic to muscle your way into somebody's house, to muscle your way through to a buyer's heart so they'll see properties with you. And that's just not the way we would want to be treated. Think about it. If you were to walk into the mall today for Black Friday and you want to go shopping, how would you want to be approached? You'd want to be approached with value. Hey, what brings you in today? Says the folks, say the folks from Nordstrom's, right? I mean, not, hey, want to try something on? Hey, do you need to try? I mean, it's amazing to me. And this happens to me on LinkedIn all the time. Every time somebody friends me up, not every time, that's an exaggeration, but so often when people friend me up on LinkedIn, do they immediately start to tell me what they have that they want me to have? I mean, you should see these sales pitches. I'm not even sure some of them say, hello, how's it going? I saw your profile, so I thought we'd hook up, right? Let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. So I think this whole idea of how we approach people is getting lost, and we got to get back to it. We got to get this thing organized. So when we go into this today, I want you to understand that some of what I'm going to go through with Sarah Corey's recordings here is that this is Mike. And Mike, I'm assuming that you're on here with me today. And I know Sarah has some sick kids at home, so you'll jump in. But I wanted to take you all further down the line and start to connect inside and outside sales to an entirety of a process that should be consistent. There shouldn't be some major disconnect when you book an appointment on the phone or you convert a sign call, whatever it is. When you make that call, there should be no disconnect when you go into the house. It should be a further continuous, presentation of what's happening. Right? Yes, Sonia. Thank you for the amen up there, sister. All right. So let's go into this and let's get after this. I think that we probably have a call that's been sent to me that I can review here. Yes, it is. So let me open up the mics, and remember, *6 your mic if you're there. And I thank all of you that are meeting with me today. I know a lot of people take today off. So Mike, are you with me? Sarah, are you with me too so that we can deal with this? You guys both?
I'm here.
All right, cool.
I'm here.
Yep. So you'll be loud.
Yep.
And Mike, okay, we're good. You can turn me off,
I'm here
Sarah.
as well.
All right, buddy. Awesome. Thanks for coming. We appreciate that. Okay. And the idea that we came up here, was, look, we don't want to just be training the BDAs in your office to do what they do and have them disconnected from what happens with you, right? Because then there's this presumption that you go out to this perfect appointment all the time, then the burden falls on you, or less than perfect. And now you want to go back to them and they're saying, well, hey, I got you the appointment, right? So we don't want that kind of an environment where it's not symbiotic. So that's why I asked for you to come on here. And by the way, do not hold your tongue. Today is the day to express how we make this better. We're not hurting anybody. I think Dave booked you the appointment. We're not trying to hurt Dave. We're trying to get this thing more connected. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So we're going to go back. Sarah sent me the call. We're going to listen to it. I know it's long, but again, because I know I won't have a lot of Americans on the call today who are taking the whole long weekend off, I'm going to listen to it as far as I can. And I want you to be listening to this to say, if that were me setting up my own appointment, here's what I might do differently, or here's what I might add. So I don't know if you have a piece of paper and a pen or whatever, but just try to take some mental notes at least, and we can kind of roll through this. Okay. That makes sense to you?
Hello?
Oh, go ahead. Somebody just asked me something. Go ahead.
This is Dave.
Hey, bud.
I just want to give a little bit of context before
Go ahead, brother.
The call starts.
Yep.
So this particular person I had talked to 3 weeks previous to this conversation.
Yep.
And they had basically told me I had pitched them on a home evaluation, and they had told me I'd like to do it at this particular date. So then on that date, I had called them a few times, didn't get a hold of them, and then this is them actually calling me.
Okay.
Instead of me calling out.
Cool.
So the very first thing she's looking to do is just book a time because we had already discussed that.
Awesome.
And then we sort of get into it. So it's a little bit of the reverse situation that a lot of my calls are.
Got it. Perfect.
Normally.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to set that up.
Perfect. Okay. And the idea here is, like, we said last time, the idea is, again, I always want to make, I love you guys because you guys let me go at it with you. The idea is I want to really try to dig into this, get in a little bit deeper with you guys to try to really, with you and Mike here today, both of you, let's really try to make this symbiotic thing. In other words, where can we really bring you two together to set this up perfectly? So I have my thoughts on that because I do that with Autumn and Laura, and I really want as much information from that seller qualifying questionnaire as possible. And we've talked about that before, and it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. We're always looking for better. But the idea is to not rush things. And then you guys have some habits of the past that were taught to you that I don't love. Tarek and Steve know I don't love them because a lot of that had to do with hurry, 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 get the appointment. Well, it's one thing to hurry, 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 get the appointment. It's another thing to set Mike up for the easiest possible and quality conversion he can get. See, Mike, we don't want Mike going in there and getting it done just on muscle. And everybody says, well, God, what are you talking about, Danny? I got him the appointment. He got it. Sure. But remember what I said last week. We're up against ourselves, boys, right? We're trying to go for better Dave, better Mike, and better process. That's what we're after. So let's go on the hunt here and try to figure out where could we have made it better. So you can self-critique, and Mike, you can do the same. Just say, hey, Dave, when I was in the house, this was a good appointment. However, I would have liked to know this, or I said this and I want you to know that, right? I want you two to communicate about this. Today, I'm going to just try to guide you two to a better thought process here as you go through this, right? To set up the best appointment. So here we go. Let's listen to her.
Hello?
Hello, this is Dave.
Yes, this is Dave.
Okay, hi. This is Jeanette. I don't call you. We've been, I think, playing phone tag.
Yes.
Some time ago about perhaps sending an appointment to check our house and things that way.
Yep.
Sure. What is your availability, or what's your schedule looking like?
We're fairly open. There are a few times that we're not available. Working around you would probably be a little bit easier.
Okay.
If you have some times that you're not available.
Okay.
I think the sooner the better. So,
sure.
Is tomorrow work for you?
Tomorrow about 2:00, I think, would be a reasonable option.
Okay. I think that works. So let's do 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Sure.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you a few questions about the home so that we can do a little bit of research ahead of time. First and foremost, I'll actually need the address.
Sure. It's 1903 Broadmoor Avenue, Broadmoor in Ottawa.
Broadmorr.
Moor.
OOR. Okay. I'm just going to take a quick peek online. That. Perfect. Okay, found it. So since I found it, I can go over what the old MLS listing was from 2006. And then you can tell me if things have changed.
Whatever house you may see there is not the house that's currently there. But we moved the house that was there. We moved it and we built a new house.
All right. Okay. So let's start from scratch then. What year was the new house built?
Oh, what happened there? Guys all with me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, that was weird. Just cut off.
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, sorry about that. Weird, it just cut off. Let's see if we can get it rolling again. All right, so yeah, pretty run of the mill there so far, right? Let's see if we can get this.
Yeah, nothing. Hello?
Hang on one second.
Hello.
Let me see if I can move this forward.
And in
powder and one offset, so 4.
From scratch then. What year was the new house built?
2008.
2008.
2009. Yeah, we're done 10 years now. Yep.
Okay. And is there a garage?
A double garage.
2-car garage. How many bedrooms and bathrooms?
Technically on paper it's 3. In real life we have it as 2. There is 2 full baths, 1 powder, and 1 offset, so 4.
4 baths, okay. You said 1 was an ensuite?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, weird, it keeps stopping. Let's just see here. Try it again. We'll see. And if not, I'm going to jump to this appointment. Let's try one more time. And if we have the same glitch, we'll just keep going.
News from the employer, the potential employer. So we're making contingency plans at this point.
As something that you could move back into.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And in terms of the timeline for when you'd like to sort of, if you were to move forward with it.
Yeah, well, we're waiting on news from the employer, the potential employer. So we're making contingency plans at this point. So it will be in the next few months. We'll know in the next 2 to 3 months. We should have a definitive answer in the next 2 months.
All right, having a little glitch here with that. So let's just roll off of it. All right, let's, Mike, what I really wanted to get to was the call sets you up. He's in there deep. He's taking his time here. So Dave, I like you sound much more relaxed on this one than in the past. You sound like you're really playing volleyball a little bit with her. I like even though we got cut off right there, I like where you're at right there. You're actually getting to the reason for it, and she's telling you. So obviously, because she called you back after playing telephone tag, there is some growing urgency here. So without biasing, Mike, you know what you had. Tell me what it's like in your office when an appointment like this comes to you. Who gives it to you? How close to the appointment are you set up? Give me a little bit of an idea, if you don't mind, of all that setup.
On this particular appointment?
Yep. Well, you can do both. I mean, I'd like this one, and then we can backtrack because maybe the general conversation requires those tweaks we're searching for, those improvements. So why don't you just talk about this one first, if you don't mind? What was it like? When did you get noticed? Do you make your own package? Really, really detailed. Take me through it.
Okay. Typically our team sends us, it can range between, a week to a day, like 24 hours. To prepare for the appointment. Obviously, the more information, the better. On this particular call, Dave did a great job getting information out of them. The biggest thing for me was her talking about, we can't make a decision on our house for 2 to 3 months. So it kind of flipped my mindset when I'm going in that I'm not necessarily trying to close them right now. And I'm not pushing for, a signature because I know that's not probably coming.
Sure.
So I'm coming at it from a more of a educational perspective where I'm saying, hey, this is what your house is worth and this is going on the market. You're kind of teaching them rather than closing them.
Yeah.
So I found that very helpful. She also later in the call, it was a brand new built house.
It has solar panels, a geothermal furnace. So it was a very, it won awards for eco-friendly, an Ottawa eco-friendly award. So she herself was telling us all about it, which is a big positive, because I knew what to lean on when I'm walking through the house with the client.
Sure.
So I knew to mention, hey, oh, that's fantastic. It's great for the environment. I knew that she was coming from, she was sensitive about the environment. And when she's bringing this stuff up, that meant a lot to her. Right. That, this was very, very good for the environment. So just having a lot of that information, I know how to relate to the client as I'm walking through the house.
Sure.
So this appointment was great. This is one of the first times we actually got to listen to the call before we go into the appointment.
Awesome. Brilliant.
And it really did help the mindset. I know where to go in. I knew that if you listen to the call, she actually drove the convo a lot.
Yep.
So listening to it, I knew she was going to actually probably push the appointment through. Like, she was the one telling me about the house and telling me a lot of the features. I didn't have to push and try and pry out information.
Bravo.
So it just mentally, it sets me up for what I'm about to walk into versus, sometimes if it's a sheet of paper and I don't get to listen to the call, this is just a free home evaluation.
Right.
I said, oh, you're not looking to sell? And no, I told that over the phone.
Yeah.
We actually go back to the phone call and I find out, the next day that, our BDA did ask, are you looking to sell your house? And they said, yes. But when I get there, they've changed their mind or they've lied to our BDA. But at least if I knew ahead of time, they said, yes, we're looking to sell our house.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, I listened to the call. Hey, I thought you were looking. Did anything change? I can push a little bit on that. Why am I here?
Well, there's the evolution, Dave and Sarah, there's the evolution of the work that we do on this sales training call, right? I mean, that's how we evolved it. Why aren't they listening to it? It's sort of like this huge epiphany. And unfortunately, both gals are out of my office today, but that will be the first thing that I talk about to them is that why don't you just send me the recording via text and let me listen to it on my way over to the house. And that way, everything's there. I've become accustomed, Mike, to really having that seller qualifying questionnaire there so that I'll just take a look at that prior to, and I will see, the reason for moving and all that stuff. But you're right. For sales folks going in the house, there is nothing like hearing the actual conversation. See, the idea of making this as transparent as possible, it brings out what actually is and stops the guessing and the infighting that breeds from that. See, if we think that like the BDAs have a tough job, number one, just getting people on the phone is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. Number two, getting somebody to read their mind aloud and tell them, and it's not even whether it's the truth or not. It's actually that oftentimes somebody's so anxious about the move, they don't know how to fully express when this might go down. Right? So if we don't ask the right questions, we're not getting them to read their mind aloud on the phone to tell you what kind of an appointment this is. Now, clearly, an appointment where somebody's waiting to hear back from an employer, and if they hear from the employer, there's about a 90-day window or faster, whatever it might be, the more that we know, the more quality that appointment still is, because why not? If Mike goes out and it's 90 days, but now not only has Dave done a good job of vetting it, the professionalism of setting Mike up, who comes out and gives a professional analysis and, of course, some tips and insight on how to prepare over the next 90, or if there's a fire alarm, hey, he got the job, he's got to go even quicker. Great. We're on it. They're not going to just all of a sudden wake up and go with somebody else, presuming that you have gained that inside line. Now, having said that, if we have this arrogance, which has quite frankly happened in the past, well, I'm not going out there until they're ready. Well, that's arrogance. And in fact, it's erroneous. Because what happens is somebody who will go out there, who will give them their best information and insight live and in the home, all of a sudden takes the pole position. And then we're wondering why we miss out. It's because we were too arrogant to go in there and actually assist them, right? So I want you to think about the competition as potentially doing that they're not willing to do it. But like we say, so that Tarek and Steve and Sarah know, so that Dave is set up correctly, so that you know what you're going into, there's no disappointment on anybody's part. Well, why didn't you get the appointment? Well, because when I got there, she told me this story about the employer who they haven't heard from yet. And until they hear from them, they're not doing anything. right? So now it's all of a sudden like, well, then Dave, why didn't you find that out? Well, because I provoked her, but she didn't tell me, right? So I think what happens is we breed this infighting if we're not as transparent as possible, because there is no perfect process. Following me, Mike, Dave, guys with me?
Yep.
Okay. So the transparency of saying, wow, Dave did a good job. He's in this conversation. He's asking all the right questions. And what we found, Mike, too, is that we went back. You can almost feel like there's a reluctance, and I get where Tarek's at on this especially. There's almost a reluctance to kick the bucket of the past and evolve. We're always hanging on. Yeah, but you got to ask this. Why? Why do we have to do anything? What we have to do is figure out what process is best to serve the consumer, and in turn, they will reward us with as much trust and then the truth about their situation as possible. That's what we're after. We keep trying to hammer process on top of people because we think it's right. And that's why listening to the other side of these conversations with the consumers, like, okay, she didn't want you to ask that. She didn't want you to pursue this. Here's what she wanted. And that's exactly what you just revealed to us, is that when you heard the call, you could hear that she was going to lead this conversation, that she was going to talk about was important to her and what her perception of the value in resale. Oh, you're not going to see the same house, she tells Dave. It's not even the same. We started all over again. We built from scratch. We did this whole thing over. This is a killer, brand new, energy efficient house. Fabulous, says Dave. Now, Mike hears that because Dave does the job to allow her to just speak. There's no interpretation. Dave doesn't have some big interpretation for Mike. It's not on a flat two-dimensional, questionnaire. It now becomes live. Kinesthetic meaning physical, in the room with them. That's the most important face-to-face, right? But auditorily, think about how much we learn these days auditorily. Think about this proliferation, he said, of podcasting, voice. You can hear so much through somebody's voice and their expression that by the time you arrive, here's the benefit to you. Yes, you know what to lean in on, but you also know the type of person that you're dealing with. So typically, and then our olden days when we didn't have technology to record these things for the benefit of the consumer, by the way, if we can hear the two guys, and this would be gals, whomever, but in this case, it's the two guys, if you both can be connected in her voice, and you understand where she's coming from, now you have good communication going forward. Say, it sounds good. Let me go out and tee it up. Now, I don't know whether Sarah kicks this one back to Dave because it's 90 days out, or it stays with Mike. My thought would be 90 days out. Dave goes back and takes over because it's not inside 2 weeks, maybe 30 days. Mike stays with it, right? But now we have this decision-making platform where we come back and we say, okay, well, it's not quite there for a listing presentation, but Mike went out. He did his due diligence. He did a good job. He teed them up. We call back in probably 45 days and say, hey, how's it going? Any news on the job? In the meantime, she's getting updates of what sells around her. So there's a continuity of information. And we're building the walls of relationship up around the two of you, this company and this lady, because information and insight is being given. So all this gift giving of all of that is blocking out competition. You two with me?
Yep.
Okay, now, Mike, let's go to the beats of when you come there, because the big conversation here today is about value, understanding what your value is that you're bringing her. Now, we've evolved. Wonderful. Dave, you're probably more relaxed knowing that this guy hears her tone. Yes or no? I don't want to lead the witness, but.
Yeah, of course. I mean, part of the reason that it was so relaxed is I had previous conversations with her, and I sort of knew her conversation. And anytime someone's calling me and saying right off the bat, okay, I'd like to schedule an appointment, it's just like, all right, all I need is the information.
Right.
And let's do this.
Right.
It's simple.
Right. But I mean, the fact that Mike was able to hear the conversation, right? Did that give you, how do you feel about that?
I think it's great. I think it's, first of all, it's more effective. And that's, that's a win. That's number one in my books, whatever the most effective path is.
Awesome. Why? Dig in deep then. I love that statement, but dig in deep. Unpack that for me a little bit. Chunk it up.
So why is it more effective?
Yes.
Well, I mean, because if he can hear, I mean, it's like speaking another language, right?
Mhm.
If I'm just an interpreter or a translator for him, and someone's speaking to me in a language, and then I look at Mike and I translate the language, that's one thing. But if he just understands what they're saying, that's a totally different ballgame, because some things don't translate, to a piece of paper, or saying, she told me X, Y, and Z, but to hear exactly the way that she'll speak about certain things, the tonality in her voice says a lot about her feelings about particular things that doesn't really always come across, right? And then his interpretation of the way she even says things is going to be different than my interpretation of the way she says things. So it's like translating a language or just being able to speak it. It's a world of difference.
You know what I'm excited about today? It's the and we had this technology back several years ago, of course, the ability to record a call. But what today, the distinction, the chunked up simple distinction, is you've done your job to the best of your ability, unless you and I listen to it and say, "Ooh, I could have been better," right? But in other words, if we find that, hey, from a consumer standpoint, if we can get them not only to reveal just what's going on with the property, but also why are they moving? How motivated are they today? Their motivation might be a 7 today because they haven't heard from the employer. So instead of being crestfallen, oh, I know why you're a 7, because when you find out from the employer, you probably go right to a 10, right? Yes. So the right questions guide us, script us to take somebody through a process that's empathetic to their individuality. She has an individual case, but systematically, she still needs to go through this. We just need to know where she fits. And then to hear, is she an anxious person? Or is she confident that once this goes, she's a roller, right? You're right. You can never translate that. So harvesting voice, I want you to write that down somewhere. Okay. Everybody who makes a telemarketing call, you are harvesting voice. So the right questions allows you to harvest how they react to those right questions, which will reveal so much more about timing and motivation than just checking a box. They are the right questions. You can and still should check the box, but the tonality and the expression of levels of anxiety, levels of fear are now obvious. And we've harvested a voice and a two-dimensional checklist. We send those over to Mike. Mike's review prior to going in, his preparation is to read the list or have it in front of him while he listens to voice. For what? Even what do we call this? A long call at 6-7 minutes? Nothing, right? I mean, to be prepared to walk into a home to spend, let's say, 45 minutes if he's systematic and this is all teed up correctly, right? Now everything is uber efficient. And because we've been so professional, we don't have to call it out to them. We're demonstrating by the questions we ask, how we harvest voice, how well it's handed off to Mike. Because now when Mike comes in, hey, Susan, so nice to meet you. Thanks for having us over. Dave and I appreciate it. He can connect the two of you. It can be a continuous thing. Dave enjoyed his conversation with you. So thanks so much for having me over, right? Could I get a nickel tour of the property? I'm so excited to see it. I hear that you've done all these great energy efficient things. Boom. He's hyper relevant. He's hyper individualistic, even though in every house he walks into the door, he asks for the nickel tour to see the product, the quick tour, right? So he's systematically going through there. And Mike, because you've heard voice, you know that she's a high I. You know that she's a D. You can now use DISC personality profiling to deal with the nickel tour and the information individually. Hey, man, she was a real cut to the chase gal. It was tough to get these questions answered. Mike, you'll have to do your best when you get in the house, but I'm pretty sure this is what I heard. You listen to it too. Now, Mike, you go in and you know it's all business. Or Mike, you know you go in and this lady was super cautious. Hey, I mean, who locks the doors when somebody leaves the appointment? Well, we're not even there yet, but Mike will explain that to you. Now you walk in knowing not just what their situation is, but how they need to go through the process. You guys both with me on that?
Yep.
So that Mike, because I can already tell, listen to you for 30 seconds. Well, Dave, I already know you're good. Mike, when you go into the house, that's that gear shift that we need to make, right? See, we don't go sell somebody the way that you and I exist. Most salespeople have, a lot of high I and high D in them. And we like, hey, we just want to go through the process. I think Laura, the first time she ever went out with me, was shocked to see, because she usually sees me as this coaching context herself. She was shocked to see how much I listened, how much I allowed that person to have their process, even though it was my formula. Let me say that again. I think in the house, Laura was shocked to see me allow those people have their process, even though it was my system. In other words, I want the nickel tour. I want to sit down across from the table from you face to face. I want to ask you to reiterate why you're moving. I want to show you my 7 steps. I want you to ask questions about those 7 steps. I want to go through the math, including the net sheet. And then I want to figure out what the next step is. Are we ready to list today, or is there subsequent follow-up? That is extremely formulaic, but my gosh, you wouldn't even recognize it if you notice the differences of the people going for that ride. Mike, you with me?
Yep.
And that's why I think at some point in time, and Sarah, Tarek, Steve, you all can work this out too. But I think the idea of having Dave go on one of these with you, Mike, and Dave, like just being, just mute, just riding along this with Mike and watching what it's like, so you become connected to it as well. And then maybe, Mike, not that you're some rookie to the phone, but sitting next to him when he makes a few calls and just getting a little bit more connected in what each one of you on the assembly line does, and then just understand its limitations. Not being disappointed when Mike doesn't go out and get it because you're clear that it was going to be a toughie to get in that moment. Or he comes back and goes, oh, geez, dude, you have no idea. There was another decision maker. I know you asked if all the decision makers would be there, but the father-in-law came in from nowhere. I had no idea. And he's a know-it-all and blah, 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 right? I mean, these are real scenarios that we run into. So the more transparent internally we are, and the more we stick to a system that we know benefits the consumer and definitely works for us, and I'm going to repeat that, it allows the consumer to have their very individualized style of process, but it follows our system. That's what keeps the control and the communication internally, so we don't turn on each other. So Mike, the beats, talk to me about the beats a little bit when you go through the house like I just did. I said them quickly, but tell me, do you find a regularity in the house with time that you spend in each one? Do you find them variable? In a perfect world, what would you like to happen better in the house?
Like during the walk around in the the
yes.
presentation at the end?
Yes.
I mean, depending on the size of the house, obviously some houses are like this particular house was a 3-bedroom, probably a 3,000 square foot bungalow.
Yep.
So she was very passionate about her house. So she took a lot of time explaining the construction and the different things going on in the house.
Yep.
This appointment was almost an hour and a half.
Yep.
And it wasn't, we didn't even talk about, when we're listing it and all this stuff. So had she actually wanted to list her house, this was probably a 2-hour appointment. We'll obviously go back there eventually when they're ready, but, we probably walked around for 45 minutes. Then we talked for 15 minutes just about, the house and how she's like living here. She's thinking about moving into a condo, but she's going to live overseas. So there's a bunch of stuff going on, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the walk around took about 45 minutes.
Okay, cool. Let me grab that.
Yep.
It's too long. Okay. Even though the rapport goes there, listen, my opinion, this is not fact for anybody, but let me give you my opinion and my own evolutionary story. The more and more and more I thought about the consumer, even though your perception is what mine used to be, is that, well, Danny, I gave her 45 minutes of quality time. I let her talk all about her situation. That's fine. But here's the problem with it. You're there to make it very clear to her that you and the system of Metro City is going to help her have the best chance to win. You will be able to take her through a process that allows her to get what she wants, which is top dollar in a relatively short amount of time so she can move overseas or wherever she's going, right? So what I found, and I refer to it this way, Mike, you are really good. So on muscle, quote unquote, is the term I use. You're going to get stuff like this and you're going to perceive, but I'm good at this. Yes, you are. Like, let's just put that aside because we're after, like I said to Dave, we're not after Mike, who's good. We're looking for Mike better and we're looking for process better. That's where I started. I'm like, okay, I go into these houses and I'm there 2 hours building rapport and everybody's exhausted. I'm wondering, Mike, are they just raising the white flag and say, I surrender, I'll list with you? Or are they actually having the best informative and empowering process that I can give them? Well, in a world where TED Talks are now 18 minutes long, Twitter is what they've doubled the characters now, however many it is, but we live in a world of succinct information because there's too much of it. So these people all day long are being overloaded with too much information. And now we come in with a small window of time with a very, very important context, a very important amount of information that they have to understand that we're unique because your vulnerability is what? You walk out that door, it's 90. Dave's done a good job. Mike's done a good job. But the danger zone now begins. 90 days of waiting. Very, very dangerous gap. Why? Not because she doesn't love you guys, not because she didn't think you were sharp, but she can't remember how you help her win. She knows she liked you. That she knows. Mike on muscle, she likes him. Guy was good. He listened, but she can't quite remember how Mike helps her win, how Danny helps her win. So I made it clear that when I go in, the very particular language I use is to her benefit. I know she wants to tell me about this fabulous energy efficient house. I already know that. Dave's done it. I listened to it. I'm ready to talk energy efficient house. But I'm not going to overindulge her because I'd be doing her a disservice. I know we're thinking we're doing a service, but I think that's where sales training gets too squishy. NLP, repeat what they say back, do all this. It's all technique stuff. Just do you and be courteous to that. But this is your process to teach her how Metro City is the best choice. You with me so far?
Yep.
So the more confusion now, especially if she's had other people in the house, now it's comparative. She may like you better than the others, but if the others are more clear about how they help her get from here to there, I liked you, Mike, but they were just clear. And it makes you vulnerable in Ottawa to discounters. Because I know those guys and gals have all of a sudden proliferated because your market's still strong. So everybody goes, oh, I can do it. Metro City does. I'll do it for X, percentage off the price. So it's so critical that we have them understand what we really do and why it is more valuable, especially than some knucklehead who discounts and makes it up. Everybody thinks that what they're saving on the commission is going to outdo what they're losing with lack of service and market making ability. So you have to make it very clear to them how you win. So you do go in and say, hey, Sally, thanks for having me over. Looking forward to seeing the house. I just want to take a quick tour of the house. That's control. I just want a quick tour of the house. Then we can sit down and get into more details. But if you could just take me through the quick tour, then I'd like to sit down with you and go over a few things. Control that moment, right? Don't get caught up in Mike on muscle who can build rapport with the best of them to get better. That's what I found. I used to do the same thing. 90 minutes, 2 hours. I am telling you, out of the last 10 listing presentations I went in, the last one was 51 minutes to be exact, because I keep looking at my clock. It's been about 45 to 51 minutes that I go through this process, and it is the most thorough, succinct process I've ever gone through, because I leave them with the math in their hands, understanding that what you told Autumn that you wanted to do and achieve, here's exactly what it looks like. And here's the truth about what it looks like. And so I think they're just shocked sometimes that I came in that prepared, and then in 45 minutes, they've been treated professionally. And whether they come back to us or not, they've been left better than we found them. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no worrying about, well, when I go, nope, I left them in that first appointment today, knowing what they have to be successful, even if it's not next week they list. If it's 90 days, of course, we're going to relook at the math, but that's the only thing that's going to change. Not the universal process I've explained to them, not the preparation I've explained to them, right? Just the math, because time passes and we need a fresh look at the math to make sure that the types of comparables are used, the type, the net sheet, is everything the same? Yes, let's go. Maybe a quick refresher. So the beats for me, I'd like the quick tour of the property, and then I'd like to sit down with you. Okay, wonderful. Boom, boom. Yep, hit a couple of points. But don't stop in the hallway and go too far. Don't do that. Right? Even if you have to keep your body moving through these rooms, keep moving, because you're losing, you're creating confusion, even though you don't think you are, because it's not a process. Hey, I saw the house. Why does Mike need to see the house? Simple. Mike needs to know whether it is average, above or below condition. That's it. Mike's already driven up to the house. Now, if it's daylight and it's reasonable and it's not a snowstorm and walking around the outside makes sense, you could do that, okay, if necessary. But most of the time when we pull up, we get it. We know where we are. Maybe we'll add that at the very end to get a quick look. But we really don't need that. We need the interior, because we're trying to find out condition. Condition. Location. We knew when we pulled up and we looked it up. We know where you are. We know what kind of neighborhood this is. I stood on your front stoop before I walked through your door. That neighbor sucks. This one's great. I got it. Now I need to get in this thing. And the one thing that the Zillows of the world and the all online algorithms can't do, they can't walk through for the quick tour. They can't do it. Google can drive by your house with a camera, but they cannot come inside. So this is what makes the realtor opportunity unique. I can get inside and gauge condition. I'd love to take a walkthrough to see the condition of the property. I just need a quick walkthrough. Would that be okay before we sit down? You are guiding them as to how this process is going to go. Wonderful. Zip. Takes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. She goes a little bit longer, 20, but 45, you're losing her. She's not marching through a process. Beat, quick tour. Great. Where would you be most comfortable sitting down where I can sit across from you, lay out some materials? Oh, at the kitchen table. Wonderful. Okay. If there's another decision maker there, they're there across the table. I'm looking at everybody to the best of my ability. So now, hey, Dave tells me that the reason for moving is because you're thinking about going overseas. Is that right? Wonderful. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you're motivated at looks like a 7 because you haven't heard from the employer. Wonderful. So you reiterate why you are there. Now you go through, wonderful. Let me just show you the systematic approach we take people through. So just like Dave's process of asking those questions to set you up, now you're going through a similar dissertation with her about how this will actually go, with or without us. Look at universally, here's what happens. He's here to say, I know I've sold 2 houses. I know, just do me a favor, just indulge me. Let me just take you through this, because we want you to know what we will do. We want you to know how we will take you through this, because we're very organized in this process. And we think that's why our clients choose us and have a good result. So indulge me, if you don't mind. Let me just take you through this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7 steps. And if I know from Dave's conversation or the tone that something's important, she's a marketer. She works in marketing. So I'm going to have to lean in on point number 4 a little bit more. I'm going to have to talk about syndication through the internet. I'm going to talk about push marketing, where we push it through social, websites, and open houses. I know I need to lean in on that, sure, but not to lose my process. Next, now that we've gone through this, any questions about any part of this process? Anything that I did not discuss here that's important to you? Okay. So number 1, at the beginning of my presentation, hey, it sounds like you're moving for this reason. You're motivated at this level. Tell me a little bit about that. Good. Let me take you through the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is there anything I didn't cover that you'd like to discuss? No. Good. Wonderful. Let's get to the math. Based on generally where this is, and think Dave, you told Dave you thought the house was probably worth $525,000. Okay, let's see what the math says. Let's go through the math. Here's what it looks like. Okay. And since nobody knows perfectly where, it will go, we can certainly, looks like there's enough evidence to cheat around your number. We go a little bit higher. And here's what potentially could net you. So let's say we do real well. Here's that net. If it's less than that, I always ground them in something less, then it's here. 95% of the time, the net sheet is a positive experience. Most people overestimate the cost of selling a property rather than underestimate it. And that's why your commissions are under assault, is because none of you take the time to put them right there visibly and actually show somebody the net. which is the value that you bring to them. You are able to help them achieve their net so that they can go overseas and move on, right? Now, at the end of all that, they are fully empowered. The information is left with them. I would say 9 out of 10 times, I have a positive reaction to that. The 10th is only because they're in shock that their house is not worth the delusional number they had. And I'm not taking delusional. I'll take cheating to a high end, but not delusional and unmotivated. So most of the time, it's a very positive experience. Now, I will just say, so clearly now you know what's going to happen. You're more empowered than when we were just talking to you. And what I recommend, since you're not ready until the employer calls back, is that I'll talk to Dave. We'll put you on a drip of everything that sells between now and when you are ready, because you have to keep up with the marketplace, because that's what will change. And then we'll check in time to time, over those 90 days from time to time, just so you know what's happening in the market and we know where you stand. Would that be okay? Wonderful. Done. That's it. So if you can learn that there are beats that are universal, you will actually allow for better individualized presentations that don't get lost in this concept of I have to be the best rapport builder that I can be. Mike, questions about that? Thoughts?
No, I agree. This particular girl, this was a long one. Usually, I would not want to walk around the house for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree that by limiting how long you walk around, you're dictating the conversation.
Yeah, and that's all. That's
especially when a girl like this, she wanted to be in total control.
For sure. And you can still make her feel that way. That's her process. I want to be in control of my process. I would assume that for everybody. Even though you were very clear she wanted to control it, it's still your process. Okay? So wonderful. You can tell me all you want, but we're going to go through this process. Otherwise, I'm going to walk out of here and I'm not going to have served you. Right? And so sometimes when a high D steamrolls you, say, look, I just want to give you the benefit of our full process here. So if we can just sit down for a few minutes and you can indulge me, let me just go through this process. Let me hit you with a net sheet and we'll leave it all for you to digest. So you can still make them feel in control, but you just can't lose the ability to follow process. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, you have it in you. You sound like a high I and probably some D you can dial up pretty quickly. You can still empower them. It's not your control versus hers. I'll repeat this one little key point and then we'll go to Q&A. Number one is it's their process, meaning the way that they go through the process is the way they're going to go through it. I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Okay. It is their way. Let me just say that. Yes, that's right. Their process, your system. Does that help? Their process. In other words, DISC, your system. That's the best way to explain it, because they're going to just react and do them. But if they're doing it on top of your system in the house, that's better. Got it? Oh, okay. I don't want to lose you two. All right. Questions from you two, and then I'm just going to move on to Q&A or anything else anybody wants to talk about. We have a small post-holiday group here, so we can wrap it up early if there's not much. Go ahead. Sarah, I don't know if you're still on and you can jump in, or anybody wants to jump into that.
Yeah, I'm here. I think that there were a lot of really good takeaways from all of that, just when Dave talked about the language and hearing sort of what they're missing or what they're gaining from being more of a team together.
Mm-hmm.
I think having the OSAs sit next to the BDAs for a few calls, and I know some of the BDAs have been on listing presentations, but I think a refresher and going again, because some of them, it's been a couple of years since they've gone.
Yeah, Sarah, at least a couple
like
times, at least a couple times a year, at least,
Okay.
least, because the variable is the marketplace. What's it like as people are getting anxious, as it ebbs and it flows seasonally? What's it like, right?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a really good point. And, even just the way that they're going through the presentation. I know usually Mike doesn't go through for 45 minutes, but using the disc for their process, the our system. Yeah.
And Mike didn't do anything wrong. Remember what we're saying. We're looking for Mike better. So it turns out it's great that we have a case where this gal wanted to control the process. That's great. That's what we're looking for here. We want one of those because that's exactly the one we want Mike to learn how to get better at. Mike, we don't let the tail wag the dog anymore like that. We allow her to feel control, but 25 minutes would have been plenty. 20 minutes would have been plenty, because what we don't want, sometimes this is the worst potential client to have. They want to control it so much, and they usually do that out of just they're used to controlling things or they're fearful. I would say probably a D and a C. Those are the people. Like the C is just so paranoid to get, taken advantage of. And the D definitely doesn't want to get taken advantage of. Those two people sometimes are looking for control and they over control it. And what happens is they miss the subtleties of what you said and they don't see your value. And the next thing you know, everybody's wondering, why they cheated on you. And then what we say about those people, that they're a control freak. They weren't going to go with us anyway. Yes, they were, but we just lost them because we didn't recognize how to get better. So Sarah, I think that was my main point there, is that this is a great one to deal with, because I don't care about all the ones where he gets it right. I care about the ones where she dragged it out too long and just throw the challenge up. Could you get it under control when somebody does that? The answer is yes. How? Language. I just want a quick tour because I want to see the condition of the property, because when I go over my information, that's going to be really important. So you want it's almost like you're leading them to that table where you sit them down and your process now gains full control because you slide the infographic across. You have the 7 steps. You're leading them to that simple process. They're allowing themselves to indulge, in that, right? Oh, yeah. I know a lot about marketing. She says, oh, I heard that. I heard you have a marketing background. You'd appreciate this about marketing these days. And now he goes off, right? See what I'm saying? Real subtle. But if you just, I want these guys to become aware of this, that this is like, these are the things good salespeople go through anyway, and they feel their way through. You know where I'm at. I believe that all of this small business should be much more intentional than it is. And that the greatest place to learn is face-to-face or on the phone with a consumer, because you're hearing what's important to them and you're recognizing consistently what works, and then say, can I make it better? Right?
Right.
Cool. Awesome.
And I think too, sorry.
Go, Sarah, finish, and then whoever that was jumps in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do have, the net sheet isn't something that they've actually used. I have it printed on my desk, so that's something we can do for the training this week.
100%. 100%. See, what we're forgetting is that this is math driven, and the biggest anxiety is math. And this is why, we're afraid to deal with the math. So why do you think we lose to discounters? Because the discounters throw the easiest math to do. I'll just discount your commission. Oh, I saved a ton. I got a cheaper commission. Really? You got smoked on your asking price because you had somebody who didn't really care about much of it. You got smoked on your marketing because you had nobody do anything. How's somebody going to run out and do these open houses and have real conversations, make real adjustments, right? See, you get what you pay for. Now, the problem with our industry is nobody can really see that. So they go off bragging that, discount, was what it was. Well, then if we're losing to that, or we're afraid of losing to that, lean right in on it. Finish the math. Say, I know you think paying us what you pay us hurts you, but it doesn't. Look at the whole process. Now, when you were talking to this other company, do they go through this whole process? Do they understand the intentionality, or are they just slapping you up into MLS? Because that doesn't work well, in our opinion, right? So it's the value. We don't understand our own value. So we complain or we get fearful. This is our value, to go in and give a thorough presentation, to offer a 7-step system that empowers them, to go through the math with them so they know when the employer calls what they can and cannot do, what they can and cannot afford on the other side. All that's so empowering to them. We've got to slow this down and start thinking about them and stop. Did we get it? Did we get it? Did we get it? You will get all of them with a seller and the buyer, for that matter, appreciate the value you've expressed. If you don't know how to express your own value, you'll get less of them. You'll feel more confused. It'll be less intentional. There'll be a lot of infighting. All those are signs of a poorly performed system or poorly created system, right?
Yeah.
Cool. By the way, the system based off of how we take the consumer. Yeah, go ahead. Is that Rebecca? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Rebecca. I have a value question, actually.
Sure.
With being on the phone. So the other day I had I explained the 7-point system strategy that we have.
Yes.
And the question was, how is that strategy any different than any of the other real estate agents that I could go to?
Well, it's not. It's the fact that we actually put it in the right order and intentionally explain it to you. So if you heard that from somebody else, then you probably are talking to somebody who has professionalized the process.
Got it.
Period.
Got it.
Period. See,
yeah, it was a tough question. I was like, I'm like, well, we have basically my response is we have a unique way of organizing it.
oh,
So
you were close. You were
saying.
close. You were close. We have a unique way of organizing it. Not really. What makes us unique is we've actually organized it. You're right. There are universal steps to selling any property, but what makes us unique, we've actually organized it into a systematic approach, which allows us to pay closer attention to the details of each stage. I think you'll love having Gail over to explain it. And at bare minimum, you'll have the deepest education and the simplest one about the process that I'm sure nobody else will give you. Take me up on it. What do you have to lose? I mean, the challenge itself, yeah, the challenge itself is excellent. But again, when in doubt, when they put you in that corner, state the obvious. That's an excellent question. We believe that this is pretty simple, straightforward, and these are universal steps. But the fact that we've actually put them in order intentionally has allowed us to make further distinctions about how to serve you better. So that uniqueness is in our understanding of each of the details. Got it?
Got it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent question though. See, that's what I want. You say the right things and then they come back, right?
You're polishing the diamond.
Yeah, well, that's right, because you're right. You do have a diamond and it's simple. That's the best news. This is not, you just embrace that. When somebody challenges you, wonderful question, you're right. We think it's, immutable. There are 7 immutable steps that everybody has to go through. It's just that we took the time to think about it, put them in order in a very simple way. But ironically, that simple order that we put them in allows us to make further distinctions about the process and guide you in more detail, ironically. That's really the truth about what's going on here. I mean, 7 steps. I took my best, well, I wouldn't say guess, not a guess, but I chunked up what I felt were the 7 universal steps that any seller anywhere goes through. Put them in a simple 5th grade understandable infographic. Certainly I have the magazine that explains it more in detail, but a 5th grader should be able to explain this. However, once you put things in order, it allows you to become a student of pricing it right, because you realize that's step number 1. You become a student of reconditioning a property, what pays and what doesn't pay to do, whether the value of staging on top of that is the sizzle on the steak of conditioning. Then and only then do you begin marketing by memorializing what's just been created in a digital format, syndicating it as stage 1, pushing it as stage 2. See what I'm saying? It allows us to discuss each bullet point more intentionally because we see its order and we learn more and more and more about it. Does that help?
It sure does, Danny. Thank you.
Bravo. Yeah, you're doing great. You hang in there because you're getting the right feedback and the right, you're coming back to me. And Rebecca, keep it simple. Keep it simple. And when you run out of tarmac for your plane to take off, say, that's a great question. I don't know. Let me ask Gail. I like that question though. Embrace it. Don't begin to, don't just lean right in when that dog bites and say, that's an excellent question. I haven't gotten that one yet. Let me just get into detail. Here's what I think it is, but let me get into detail. I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to ask, my consultant, Danny and Gail, about what they know about this process, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to get caught, especially out there. There's a lot of smart people out there, or they presume they are, the highly educated, right? So just lean in and just say, that's a great question. Excellent. I've never gotten that one before, right? Here's what I think it is, but I'll give you more detail. That's resourcefulness, meaning here I am. I'm out of my answer. Here's what my hunch is. Here's what I believe it. But let me go be resourceful for you and I'll get you some more info. Good question, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, you love it. I love it. Love it. All right. Final question. Anybody?
Hey, Danny.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Tanya.
So when you're doing the net sheet, are you trying to include any information you might have about mortgage payoffs?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. If In the seller qualifying questionnaire, we can find out if there's a mortgage on the property and it's there. We don't worry about that anymore. We used to try to get it, but why really push for it? Sometimes they feel that that's a little bit more private. I can deal with that in the house. So lately we've been going out without it there, but clearly the line for it, we say, look, prior to your mortgage payoff, here's what you'll walk away with.
Okay.
Cool?
Yep. Cool.
But lean into doing it. Lean into doing it. And by the way, let me reiterate this. When we do it, Tanyel, we'll take a lower number that we might think is more realistic and not the highest number. We'll take a higher number. So like they say it's 5.25, we might do it with 515 and the low number was 475. So we ground them. So we have one column at 475 net sheet, another one at 515. And then if we get in there, we feel like, oh, they can't do this, or maybe the house is better than we thought. We're going to create a third blank column. See, we go in with this already done up. Why? Going through this process, I felt that when I got to the math, fumbling and stumbling and waiting to do the math with a calculator and my glasses flopping all over the place. I'm like, Laura, just do this based on the analysis we do first. And now let's create a blank column. So if everybody's freaking out and I need to do a manual redo, I'm prepared. That's today's best practices.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. All right, everybody, that concludes the call. I appreciate you all for being here post-Thanksgiving, especially my Canadians, Mike, Dave, Sarah. Awesome. Really good. So excited about what's happening up there at that company boy, there's good things to come for you all for being so transparent and patient with each other. Always remember the critique here is we're looking for better versions of already really good people, Mike and Dave. That's the key, right? You guys are already good, but you're now your own standard. You got to push for the better version of yourself. And we do that by listening to the consumer and seeing, does it feel easier for them? Are they more empowered? Are they leaning in with us? That's the only thing that tells us we're right. Okay. Thank you too. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. You're welcome. It's my pleasure, guys. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Go out and practice this stuff so that next week you bring me some real anecdotes like Rebecca just did. That's what I'm looking for. Good job.
Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome. Take care, all.